New, polarizing, loved, hated, powerful, expensive. Talking about Dior Sauvage Elixir. For me personally, I think it's one of the best releases of the year. I love this stuff. I love a great woody spicy scent. And in my opinion, this is a great woody spicy scent. But there's a lot of people that don't want to pay $155 for a 60 ml. Totally get that. So our friends at SCENTual Obsessions created Wild Thing Elixir, hoping to alleviate that problem for many. But is it that close? I don't know. I haven't smelled it yet. Figured I'd do it with you guys. Let's check it out. Stay tuned. So, one spray of the original on the right hand, and one spray of the clone on the left hand. So I'll put the appropriate bottle in each appropriate hand. Give it a second because, good Lord, look how much of that oil is on my hand from the clone versus still a pretty nice sheen from the original, but better distribution. I mean, it's a Dior atomizer versus a stock bottle atomizer. I mean, it is what it is there. So with the original, man, look, I know there's some people that don't like it. To each their own. I think it's great. I think it's such a good release. Spicy, dry, woody, aromatic. Here, this is a little bit more sweetness going for it, I find, in the opening. Yeah, I feel like it's a fresh sweetness, almost like more so lavender with a touch of sweetness. I feel like the lavender's dialed up a bit here. The spices are there. It does have that dry wood shop quality, which is I attribute to nutmeg. Anytime I get that dry wood spice, it's a nutmeg smell. As it calms down more, it starts to get much more similar. Potency is a non-issue. It's just as strong. I do find it's a bit more aromatic, a little bit more fresh, and a touch sweeter than the original, to be completely honest with you. Not a one-to-one smell. But the more it settles, the closer it gets. I would say the opening is like a 75-80% similarity. Not quite one-to-one or spot on. Very similar opening. So what we're going to do is I'm going to give this about 20 minutes. I'll come back and we'll compare as it's really started to settle into the heart and early dry down, if it's getting more similar or if it's becoming its own fragrance. So we'll be right back. So it's been about 23 minutes according to the time. Okay, it's gotten much closer. The creamy sandalwood has creeped in on both. There's a much more dense creaminess here. A little bit more of a woody nature. Not quite as dry. Pretty damn close, actually. In the dry down, early dry down, obviously. Deep dry down, we still got a few hours to go. But in the heart to early dry down, they're quite similar, actually. The opening was 75-80% maybe, where I think the dry down's more in that 85-90% range. Much, much closer. Early dry down now. In the heart of the fragrance. The lavender is still shining, very present. That little touch of sweetness I had up top with the clone with Wild Thing Elixir has kind of faded, leveled off, smoothed out to blend in with this creamy sandalwood. Still a lot of spice. I feel like the cardamom was probably what was adding that touch of sweetness. There may have been a higher dose of cardamom in this versus the original, because that can have a bit of a sweet spice type of smell. That's the only thing I could really think of that would really add the sweetness, and the lavender was more prominent. Yeah, this is definitely a little bit more lavender dominant than the original Sauvage Elixir. But I gotta say, like I said, opening 75-80% similar, dry down 85-90% similar. Definitely not one-to-one. There are subtle differences, but the differences here are balance differences, I find. It's not that there's different notes or different accords that I'm getting. It's just there's a shift in the balance, whereas this has a touch more sweetness and it's a little bit more on the lavender, whereas this is a little heavier on the nutmeg, I would say. It's a little bit drier and spicier, slightly. And the aromatic nature is not as in your face. I think it's the type of lavender being used, because this has a little bit of a fresh soapy quality, but not really a soapy fragrance in any way. Please don't misconstrue when I say a little touch of a soapiness. It's a different type of lavender, I think, is what I can attribute the lavender differences that I'm picking up here. In the air, in the trail, might not be detectable or noticeable by anyone. Who knows? I'm not following behind me when I walk by to smell the trail to know for certain. But the directly off skin test, I'm sticking with those numbers. The opening 75-80%, so very similar but not the same. The heart and early dry down, I would say very similar, but still not exactly the same, but very similar. I think the dry down really does Wild Thing Elixir justice versus the real one, and the price difference is astronomically different. You can get 2 ounces of this for a lot cheaper than 2 ounces of this. So I would say, if you're interested in getting a more affordable way to smell like Sauvage Elixir, maybe grab a decant. Get a sample pack from SCENTual Obsessions. Always check out Andy Warhol if you haven't. That's always my vote. And get a decant of this from SCENTual Obsessions and see if it tickles your fancy, if you like how it smells on your skin, if it performs well for you, and if it'll do the job. As always, I always recommend going with the original, but in the event that that's just not feasible, and with Sauvage Elixir, I could see how it's not feasible for a lot of people because it's very expensive for 2 ounces of a designer fragrance. This might be a viable option for you guys. I'm going to spend some more time with it. I'm actually going to give it some wear later in the week, make it my scent of the day over the next couple of days, and really see just how close it is. But in this first impression, early comparison, it's pretty similar, but not spot on. Well, that is my first impressions early comparison on the original Sauvage Elixir versus SCENTual Obsessions version called Wild Thing Elixir. Like I said before, I would call it 3/4 of the way, maybe a little better in the opening, and about 90% there in the heart and early dry down. So once you give it about 20 or so minutes, it gets really, really similar real fast. So not too shabby. Kevin, SCENTual Obsessions, good job. I think it's a good effort. I really do. Gold line, quality's there. Smells like the performance is going to be there. It's really pushing off of my skin. And the similarities are undeniable. And until next time, do me a real quick favor. Go ahead and like, comment, subscribe. So I do appreciate all the feedback, and I love hearing from you guys. How many of you have gotten your hands on this already, have tried it already? What do you think about it? How similar do you find it to be? Does it do the job for you? You know, it's not always the situation where I have the original to compare. And in this instance, I know a clone of Sauvage Elixir is kind of a hot topic right now because this is so pricey, which I think it's so damn good I didn't have a problem buying it personally. But I could see where a lot of people could find some value in Wild Thing Elixir. And until next time, I will say, if you get your hands on either one of them and you give them a spray now, might end up thanking me later. Have a good one, guys.